And now to our other big story of the day, a tornado outbreak in Tampa Bay. Check out this incredible video of a water spout this morning. It was shot by Don Evans near Sand Key. You can see that funnel cloud right there over the water. And more incredible video, this out of Clearwater, a twister right along the tree line. This was actually taken at Pinellas County's Emergency Response Building on Drew Street. The noise from the storms woke up plenty of people this morning. 3 EF0 tornadoes touched down, one in Pasco County where dozens of homes were damaged. The other 2 tornadoes were in Pinellas County. One was that waterspout at Clearwater Beach, the other in Clearwater near the Courtney Campbell Causeway. And Peter Bernard joins us live from Clearwater tonight. And here's the good news, the silver lining in all this, a lot of damage, but nobody injured, Peter.
Good evening, Stacy. You are right. Despite lots of limbs, lots of large limbs falling in many of the neighborhoods around here, nobody was injured. However, now comes the job of cleanup. The sound of chainsaws replaced the sound of swirling winds in a Clearwater neighborhood. Ben Broderson gathered his family under futons and mattresses.
Seemed like if the house is going to come down, if at least we're under mattresses, we might be okay.
At the Brigadoon Apartments, a limb lodged next to a steering wheel.
This morning, thank God we're running late. So they wasn't in the car, still preparing to get out. Any other time, though, give or take, they would have been in that car.
Neighbors report hearing a roaring noise.
Sounds like a train coming through, and all of a sudden there's tree branches flying all over the place.
A limb punctured his roof. The storm also ravaged parts of this neighborhood.
It was like a war zone. Garbage cans, the big, you know, the ones with the wheels that the trucks lift, they were traveling down the street doing 60 miles an hour, slamming into things.
At a nearby park, the storm mangled soccer goals, a large fence, and a new scoreboard.
My trampoline got picked up and thrown into a tree, and it's broke.
The storm mostly spared Haley Dixon's house, but her prized trampoline is ruined. She and her family took cover.
I went into my mom and dad's closet that had no windows.
Like a giant banana, the storm peeled this roof off. And all day long, there have been tree crews here. Now we see a Duke Energy crew behind me. I want to point out something. In this neighborhood here, look at this. Somebody put up a sign, I think it's the county, warning about unlicensed contractors. Oftentimes when you see storms like this come through, right after that, unlicensed contractors go through. So that storm's to warn people about that. Down at the Brigadoon Apartments, there are 3 apartments that are not livable, and right now the Red Cross is helping those folks.
The strong earthquake has jolted the Afghan capital of Kabul and surrounding areas on Sunday. The China Earthquake Network Center said the quake measured at 7.3 magnitude. Tremors have also been felt in parts of Pakistan and India. There were no immediate reports of damage or injuries. We'll, of course, keep you updated as more information becomes available. Now for the very latest development, let's talk to our correspondent Shweta Bajaj in New Delhi. Shweta, 7.3 magnitude. That's got to be a big quake. What more can you tell us at this point?
At the time of the quake, we were at the 5th floor of a building, and we were seeing aftershocks of the Nepal earthquake and the recent Pakistan earthquake here in New Delhi. But this was much, much bigger. We all had to rush down, considering that this quake went on for a considerable period of time. After about 30 seconds, there were other aftershocks that came. Later, the news trickled in that the epicenter could be somewhere in Afghanistan or Pakistan. Also, here in Delhi, the Delhi government decided to stop the Delhi metro for time being. There was massive quake also felt when people were in the train. At this point in time, as far as India is concerned, we don't know of any sort of damage to either buildings, infrastructure, or people. But the earthquake itself was pretty massive, leading to a pretty much standstill situation. And people who were working in offices, considering there were very few people because it was Sundays, everybody came out. The streets were full of people. The cars were stopped. There were traffic jams where our office is right outside. There was a red light which would stop functioning, because of which there was a traffic jam. And you saw a lot of people actually coming out and panicking. So considering that the epicenter is not here, even then the size of the quake was considerably big.
CCTV Shraddha Bajaj updating us on that earthquake in Afghanistan. Shraddha will be checking back with you later in the program. Thank you.
Every year, this temple marks New Year celebrations with a fireworks display and competition. Once again this year, thousands of people had come to worship and watch the pyrotechnics. It was halfway through the show when a spark set off the rest of the fireworks in storage, leading to this scene. Officials say most of the people who died were trapped by the flames in the crowded Paravur temple as the storage shed next to it exploded. Chunks of concrete and debris from the temple crushed worshippers. The explosion was felt within a 1 kilometer radius, shattering the windows of homes and buildings in the area.
The families of the deceased will be provided financial assistance, and the injured will be given free treatment by the government. The Chief Secretary has written to the Election Commission seeking permission to provide financial assistance to the victims. The government is doing its best.
Nearby hospitals were overwhelmed. It's a small fishing and residential town not equipped to deal with a disaster of this scale. Most of the injured were sent to the state capital, Thiruvananthapuram, nearly 70 kilometers away. With the rescue mission over, there are many questions and growing anger from residents. They had previously asked for the fireworks event to be cancelled. Officials say the temple did not have permission to hold the fireworks competition, saying there were no adequate safety measures or precautions in place. Kerala is preparing for state elections, and this disaster is becoming the focus of not only local politicians, but also the country's Prime Minister. While the scale of this accident is exceptionally large, disasters at religious events and festivals happen frequently across the country. Many say this incident is getting so much attention from the government because of its timing ahead of elections. And there will be questions about why the government has largely failed to respond to long-standing calls to strengthen policing, crowd control and safety measures at events like this, which draws a huge number of people. Divya Gopalan, Al Jazeera, New Delhi.
Thousands of people are fighting the controversial abortion law, protesting at the State House today. But meeting them there, pro-life supporters, and both sides are exchanging heated words. The contentious new law set to take effect in July bans abortions if a woman seeks the procedure because the fetus could have birth defects or is a certain gender or race. Now, this has prompted federal lawsuits from the ACLU and Planned Parenthood, and now protesters voicing their opinions at the State House as well. RTV6's Liz Adiola live tonight with a look at both sides of this hot-button issue. Liz, what are people saying about this right now?
Well, Melissa, talk has turned tonight to raising money for the Women's Health Fund. Planned Parenthood is actually holding a benefit at the Marriott. It just kicked off right now, but this is just a few hours after there was debate just a few blocks away at the state capitol. Amongst the rally cry, there were clashes.
This is a shame.
Strong ideas carried by both men and women, voicing their thoughts on a bill Governor Mike Pence recently signed into law, basically banning women from seeking abortions if a fetus is a certain gender or race or shows signs of birth defects.
I'm not forcing anyone not to do something they don't want to do, and I expect that same respect.
Jennifer Wilson, one voice among hundreds who held up signs against the decision, saying it infringes on women's rights.
It feels like, from a woman's standpoint, that what we're allowed to decide for ourselves is shrinking more and more. And so it's just something I felt like I really needed to stand up for.
The representatives with Indiana Right to Life say the law is actually about stopping discriminatory practices.
This rally is an ugly reminder of the fact that they want to have the right to kill their babies that don't meet up to their expectations. And these are the same characteristics that we seek to protect.
While at the same time, they say they're saving lives like Katie Shaw's.
A person is a person, no matter how small.
Among the large crowd, voices against abortion push through.
We have military personnel fighting for what they believe in, laying down their lives for our freedoms in this country. But women can't lay down their lives for 9 months for a child. If they can't take care of that child, put them up for adoption.
Met each time with a push right back, a group that says it won't give up.
It's time for the legislature to understand that women are important. We have lives. We are people.
Even though the law goes into effect this July. Yeah, both sides standing very firmly on what they believe. Tonight's benefit, according to Planned Parenthood, the funds from that benefit will go to help low-income men and women get health preventative care services. Reporting live downtown, Liz Adiola, RTV6.
To say, Tashana?
Well, Asha, Bruce Springsteen, an activist in his own right, he's taking a stand against something that has been making headlines for quite some time now. Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band have decided to pull out of their concert on Sunday that was supposed to be held at the Greensboro Coliseum in North Carolina. Of course, a lot of fans upset about this. They were expecting around 15,000 people to attend, but they decided to make this move because of the state's new law that is blocking anti-discrimination rules for the LGBT community. Now, I want to share a bit more about this law. It's called House Bill 2, and it would require transgender people to use bathrooms based on their biological sex, so the sex that would be indicated on their birth certificate. And it also bans state lawsuits for workplace discrimination from even being launched as well. So a lot of activists have been against this. They are calling this law discriminatory and, of course, not recognizing the rights of everyone. And Springsteen said he's canceling his concert to be in solidarity with protesters. I want to share a bit more about what he had to say in a statement on his website. He said, "Some things are more important than a rock show, and this fight against prejudice and bigotry is one of them." He also shared more, with fans on his website. And fellow guitarist Steven Van Zandt also called the legislation an evil virus. He made this tweet: "Proud to be in the E Street Band." And he said that the band had considered going ahead and performing and making a more political statement on stage, but they said that they felt that the economic hurt for, of course, that would be felt because of this concert not being taken place is a lot more hard-hitting, hit them in their pockets. This is the reasoning. They have been receiving a lot of support, but Mark Walker, who is a U.S. congressman, has been vocal about this move, and he says that he thinks that Springsteen is a bully for taking this stance and that he should follow through with his commitment, but all ticket holders can get their tickets refunded.
Springsteen, just the latest big name, really, to have spoken out against this so-called bathroom law. Who else is speaking out?
Well, there's been a number of companies that have been, sharing their support for this their support against this law. But we're also seeing some interesting things. Lionsgate was preparing to film a new show for Hulu, and they've decided to basically pull the shooting in North Carolina. It was filming was scheduled to begin in May, but the production has been moved. That's going to cost North Carolina about 100 jobs. So that is definitely a huge push. Springsteen, again, a lot of people supporting him online, fellow celebrities as well. And we're seeing sponsors and brands also supporting, or going against this bill and sharing their support with protesters and activists. Asha?
Rising concerns this morning about a very unusual new firearm. It could go on sale later this year. The weapon looks just like a smartphone, but it's actually a .380 caliber handgun. The design is drawing attention from law enforcement and the lawmakers like Senator Charles Schumer. Josh Elliott of our digital network CBSN is here with the controversy. Josh, welcome and good morning.
Thank you, Gail. Good morning to you. We should emphasize that the gun in question is still actually in development. An actual working version does not yet exist. But that hasn't stopped Senator Schumer from calling for an investigation aimed at keeping this potential weapon off the market.
It's about as big as most phones would be with any kind of a protective case.
Kirk Jelberg is CEO of Ideal Conceal. He says his gun's design, which allows it to unfold from a smartphone shape to a fully functional weapon, would allow a responsible owner to carry it more freely.
There are some people that really would take serious issue in your workplace or somewhere else to see, a gun on you. And I think it gives people an opportunity to avoid that conversation.
It's clearly being marketed for nefarious purposes.
But on Monday, New York Senator and gun control advocate Charles Schumer called on the Department of Justice and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives to investigate whether this gun would violate federal law.
There are two federal laws that might be applicable. A gun can't be disguised like a pen or something else. The other says that if a gun can't be detected as a gun, as it goes through security, like at an airport, both can be made illegal.
Jelberg responded in a statement to CBS this morning, saying, "I encourage Senator Schumer's investigation, as it will reveal that Ideal Conceal will fall firmly in line with ATF guidelines and is therefore legal." Matthew Horace is a former ATF special agent and says this new invention could have disastrous consequences.
If law enforcement comes in touch with someone that has this and mistakes a phone for a gun or a gun for a phone, the results could be tragic.
The company says the new firearm will be available for purchase by the middle of this year for $395.
The Second Amendment says you have a right to bear arms. The Second Amendment doesn't say you have a right to bear a gun that's disguised as an iPhone.
A Texas school police officer has been put on leave after video surfaced of a violent incident at a middle school.
Janessa, you okay?
Wow, the video posted Wednesday shows the officer pick up and body slam the student. This all happened at Rhodes Middle School in San Antonio last week, and the officer was reportedly responding after two students began arguing. Now, after slamming the student to the pavement, he can be seen pulling the dazed girl to her feet and leading her away. School officials called the video, quote, concerning, and said the district as well as local police were investigating it as a case of excessive force. The officer involved has been with the department for more than a year and served previously in the Air Force.
London police have arrested several people as scuffles have been breaking out against British Prime Minister David Cameron over his involvement in the Panama Papers scandal. Scuffles erupted after protesters gathered in Parliament Square and called for Cameron's immediate resignation. They said Cameron is no longer fit to run the country as premier. They also demanded a full investigation of the issue. The protesters warned that they will continue to protest until Cameron resigns. Recently leaked documents from a Panama-based law firm revealed that the British Prime Minister and his wife benefited from an offshore fund set up in Panama by his late father. Cameron has taken the blame for the scandal and says he should have handled the case differently.
The Panama Papers have been making headlines since last week. The leaked documents have already placed several leading figures in hot water and even forced Iceland's Prime Minister to step down. Now thousands of British protesters are asking for a similar decision by their very own Premier.
It's been a tough week for David Cameron. It took him 5 days to admit he'd benefited from an offshore investment fund, and now parliamentarians want him to give a full account of his private financial dealings. But the protesters here just want him to resign.
I think he should definitely resign, primarily because of the utter level of hypocrisy that he's committed to.
He can't be trusted, he's a joke really, and it's not fair, he doesn't represent people.
Not only has he taken advantage of avoiding taxes that everyone else has to pay, he's stood there and he's lied day after day. The man's got no integrity.
We just need to get the British public on our side and get him out. He needs to resign tonight.
As the protesters marched through the streets of London, they stopped outside the Grand Connaught Rooms where the Conservative Spring Forum was taking place. Outside the plush building, they shouted slogans demanding Cameron's resignation and referred to him as a liar and a hypocrite.
I think he's been a massive hypocrite, an incredible hypocrite. I mean, when you say it, when you look, they say that they're the party for hard-working people, yet at the same time, what they're actually doing is taking money from hard-working people.
If people like our Prime Minister and our Chancellor of the Exchequer and the Tory candidate for mayor paid their taxes and didn't decide to be non-domiciled, then we could afford everything we need.
How can we trust him anymore? And to be completely honest, I think that he should resign.
While there were thousands in attendance for the demonstration, the number of people now disillusioned with David Cameron is even greater. Opinion polls show that the Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn is more popular than Cameron. So is this the beginning of the end for the Tory leader? These protesters certainly hope so.
Clashes in the French capital as riot police try to contain protesters on this, the 6th straight day of nationwide Labour protests. Marches against a proposed overhaul of the country's protective labor laws have swept across the country, with similar scenes like this happening in the western city of Rennes on Saturday. At issue, a new set of draft regulations that Parliament is debating, which critics say will worsen working conditions and create job losses. But company bosses say the current labor code deters recruitment and that the changes are needed. Nearly 400,000 people participated in marches across the country on March 31st, although changes to the draft law have softened the bill and the nationwide protest movement has waned. Still, emotions remain high, and not even the revised draft has silenced the protests.
Macedonian police have used tear gas to push back hundreds of migrants from a border fence at a sprawling refugee camp on the Greek side of the border. Greek police say there has been tension in the area but declined to comment further. Tear gas was fired on more than 500 people who gathered at the fence. A Macedonian official says that a large group of migrants left the camp in the morning and stormed toward the fence. The European Union is currently implementing an accord under which all migrants arriving in Greece will be sent back to Turkey if they don't meet asylum criteria.
Bryan Adams has canceled a show in Mississippi this week to protest a new state law that lets people with religious objections deny services to same-sex couples. The Canadian singer said in a statement, quote, "I cannot in good conscience perform in a state where certain people are being denied their civil rights due to their sexual orientation." Adams was set to perform on Thursday at the Mississippi Coast Coliseum in Biloxi. A law signed in Mississippi last week allows people with religious objections to deny wedding services to same-sex couples and permits employers to cite religion in determining workplace policies on dress code, grooming, and bathroom and locker access.
A Southeast Texas teacher is in trouble after allegedly hitting a student. 63-year-old geometry teacher Mary Hastings was arrested after someone posted this video online. It allegedly shows her sweeping papers off the student's desk, then slapping him 5 times. The boy had apparently disrupted the class. Hastings is now free on bail and on administrative leave.
Since we last discussed the Zika virus, we continue to be learning pretty much every day, and most of what we're learning is not reassuring. We have learned that the virus is linked to a broader set of complications in pregnancy, not just the microcephaly, but also prematurity, blind eye problems, and some other conditions. we have learned that the mosquito vector, the Aedes aegypti mosquito, is present in a broader range of states in the continental U.S. We are quite concerned about Puerto Rico, where the virus is spreading throughout the island. We think there could be hundreds of thousands of cases of Zika virus in Puerto Rico and perhaps hundreds of affected babies.
We also are continuing with the vaccine studies that I mentioned to you. I told you that we would very likely have our first vaccine candidate in phase 1 in September. That looks like it's on time. We're producing it in our pilot plant outside of Bethesda, and we're going to then be processing it to be able to get it through the FDA to put into a human.
You know, much of our predictions... But we absolutely need to be ready. You know, as Dr. Fauci was saying, everything we look at with this virus seems to be a bit scarier than we initially thought. And so while we absolutely hope we don't see widespread local transmission in the continental U.S., we need the states to be ready for that. And that